everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 15 of Berserk. And man, the last few episodes, we resolved the whole issue with Adon. Adon, we're assuming, got away because he wasn't amongst the dead that we saw. Maybe he didn't get away, I don't know. But most of his men were killed by Guts, who has been pretty badly injured and has been put on bed rest, but you know Guts, he is not listening to them, orders. And him and Casca have had amazing conversations the last several episodes. Like episodes 11 through 14 was just an amazing little arc of Casca and Guts kind of getting to know each other, realizing how similar they are, understanding their goals, and Guts realizing that he doesn't really have a goal, but he may have to leave the Band of the Hawk to go find it. And that's what Casca's afraid of, because now that she knows about Guts and she's kind of become interested in him, he's getting ready to leave, and she's like, but wait! And so we have that. We have Griffith moving his way up the ranks. There's still the war to be dealt with, but I mean, Julius and Adonis are gone now, so it's really Griffith's for the taking. He just has to win this war, whatever that amounts to, and then marry Charlotte, and he has got it made. And so then that leaves Guts wondering, well, what do I do then, right? After Griffith wins the throne, what good is it for me to still be here? So there's lots of things put in motion. I'm really excited about it. Based on the comments everybody's been commenting at, the things that stood out to me were, one, talking about Moira, or Moira, however you pronounce the mangaka's name, the similarities between him and Kusanagi, who is the mangaka for Yona the Dawn, their similarities, the idea of the development with Casca as a character. And the thing about it is, several people were talking about how the development of Casca is not perfect. Well, no, he's a male mangaka. I mean, it would be hard for me as a woman to write completely about the experiences of a man, especially in terms of biology, because I'm not a man. So I applaud the mangaka for Berserk for at least giving Casca a three-dimensional character and trying to be empathetic and understand her character and her position. I totally agree with that. And we were talking about how like the male characters end up, with just as much harm as the female characters. #feminism. that's what it is, right? A lot of people think feminism is like bra burning and making sure that women are always on top, and there are waves of that. But the most modern iteration of feminism is really just equality between genders. It's just called feminism because it's making note that that's usually not been the case in a patriarchal society. So the idea is that men and women are just recognized equally. That's all it amounts to. It's simple. You would think. You would think. So yeah, I really like that. That and one of the lords from the previous episodes, around episode 10, was played by the same voice actor as Roy Mustang from Fullmetal Alchemist. So I thought that was fun. I was like, oh, cool. There's so many good voice actors in this series, though, that it's kind of insane, right? But I'm really excited. We were in the middle of fall now. It's Berserk weather, whatever that means. And I'm really excited to dive into episode 15 and see what we get. I'm kind of curious now because we're setting up what seems to be the final stages of this battle to win this war that would allow Guts to take the throne, or at least be able to work to the next step of that. And so I'm curious what that's going to look like, how that's going to roll. Are we going to spend the rest of the season or a big chunk of it focusing on these final battles, or are we just going to streamline right to it, With Berserk, you just never know what they're going to do because the series takes so many twists and turns to get there. So with that being said, I'm really excited to start this, y'all, and see what we get. I hope you all are too. But we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to dive right in and talk about Berserk episode 15. And we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's do this. I love this series so much. You know what? I love this series so much. I'm really excited to get to the manga. People keep asking me if I'm going to review the manga, and I'm like, yes, obviously. I think I've said that so many times now, but it bears repeating. I am going to read the manga. My goal is that I'm in the process. I need to buy some new equipment for this setup, and that's what I've been saving up my Patreon money for. So thanks, patrons. And so one of the things I want to get is I want to get a stand to kind of sit here and have the manga, because I want to get the deluxe editions, right? And because they're amazing and they're huge, and so why not? So I want to get the deluxe editions and have them here, and then what I would like to do is get like a little camera that can be put up here on the screen that I can screen capture and then show you all the manga through the Ultimate Editions as I talk about it, right? My only other option would be to buy the digital versions of the manga, and there's like 42 volumes of them, and I want to do multiple volumes per reading. So that's the goal, but that's going to be part of it. But I'm so excited. But God, this episode was great. This episode was great. We just came back off of all this character development, and what I love about this show that it does is it pays off those developments. The stuff with Casca and Guts pays off in this episode. Knowing and learning about Griffith's background and his relationship with the governor who's been there all along. Oh my God, it now all makes sense. I was like, damn, it is him. It all pays off. So all the little things that have been adding up slowly over the course of the season are paying off. And it sounds like we're gonna finish this battle in an episode or two, which is so crazy because that leaves us a lot. We have like 10 episodes left of this anime series, the anime season rather, and so I'm like, oh, we're about to end the battle in like an episode or two. That leaves us with 8 or 9 episodes of potentially what happens afterwards, which is exciting because it's like, okay, because usually in an anime like this, your conclusion of the series, your climax, like if this is a 25 episode season, usually episodes 21 and 22 and 23 would be around this time, having your decisive battle, and then you'd have episodes like 24 and 25 to round out. But we're doing this really early, so that leaves a lot of room for other things to happen. I'm excited about that, but I'm also kind of like, well, what are we going to do? So I'm curious to see. I've been curious this whole time to see how much we get of Guts, how much we get leading up to Guts that we saw in episode 1, and how much they're not going to show us and we're going to have to read the manga for. But we'll cross all those bridges when we get to it, right? I didn't see the need to bring out Whiteboard-kun because I wanted just to go through this episode and talk about it. There's not a whole lot that could be written on Whiteboard-kun, I don't feel, except some very interesting developments, right? But essentially, the idea is that Guts has been trying, it's the decisive battle is the title of this episode, and Guts has been trying to figure out what he wants to do, and he's come to the conclusion that yes, after this final battle, that is the decisive battle to win the war against the Tudor Empire, Griffith is like, once I've helped Griffith accomplish this, I'm gonna leave. And I'm gonna go off and find my purpose. Now, there's lots of things that can come of that, and I probably could have wrote it on Whiteboard-kun now that I think about it. There's lots of things that could happen. One is the idea of, is Guts going to be able to leave, like, on his own accord? That's the thing, is Griffith going to be like, now, wait a minute, Guts, we kind of need you. Because we're going to talk about that. I feel like Casca is kind of like, Casca doesn't want Guts to leave because she's come to form this bond with him, and she sees him as a loyal soldier and comrade and maybe something more, but she's not really committing to that. But she sees him as a valuable part of the army of the Band of the Hawk, and she knows now that Guts has connected with the troops, and she's like, if you just leave, these guys that, the thing about it is that Guts has kind of become someone like Griffith in the sense that people are following Guts. They're sharing their dreams with Guts. They're connecting with Guts. They're incorporating Guts into their dreams and purposes. And for Guts to leave, that's going to leave like a big hole there. And Casca's probably like, oh, this is going to be a problem if you leave. The question is going to be, is Griffith going to let Guts leave without a hustle? Because I could see, I could be wrong, and it's fine if I end up being wrong, but I could see Griffith being like, oh, well, wait a minute. We need you to stick around, and help defend the kingdom and help me achieve my dream. And Guts being like, oh, well, I want us to be friends, and for us to be friends, I gotta go do my own thing. And Griffith being like, why would you think that? And then it becoming a big thing, right? Because when we get to the Casca and the tent, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but I could see that it's not going to be as easy as Guts thinks it is to just up and leave, right? It's not going to be as simple as that. So, man, can we talk about the armor and just the armor and the designs of these soldiers here? The white tiger, so now the white dragons, the blue dragons or whatever they are that Julius led, now it's a thing. It's not just, I thought that was just like one specific group, that the dragon knights were just a rare thing. No, all of the knight groups have names, which kind of connects to Adon being like a seahorse or whatever. That all makes sense. And so the white tiger, it's Tiger King, the white tiger knights. I love his design. The cape, the stripes on the armor. The horse has like a mane that's been like, the mane is, we had a horse that was white and had like black stripes in its mane, so it's possible, but you have to do like it's like a rare, I mean, the color coding to be that exact is pretty rare. So I'm like, did he scout all the horses just to find a horse that had that specific color combination? He's like, that one, I'm riding that horse in the battle. Sir, that horse is part Arabian, you can't tame it, I'm taking it. So yes, I'm all about that. I think that's hilarious. It's got to fit the aesthetic. It's kind of like Griffith and his white horse. Got to fit the aesthetic. I mean, come on, that's half the battle. But I love his, we didn't see it till the close-up later, but his shoulder, like, pads of his armor are paws. He's so freaking cool. I love all the badass armor design. It's just, I'm living for it. Yes, I can't wait to see it in the manga because I'm sure it'll be even more detailed and even better. But this guy's kind of, I get where he's coming from, the white tiger knight leader, where his troop gets wiped out. So, of course, he would feel a little bit, you know, thrown under the bus by Griffith, because he's like, oh, was my army not good enough? You guys think your paltry 5,000 is going to just waltz in and defeat 30,000 men when my own troop couldn't do it? I could see why he feels a little bit threatened by it, because Griffith taking on the king's proposal makes him feel inferior because he feels like his men couldn't cut it, but this kid's will, and then Griffith's so young. We'll talk about that conversation, but I get where the white tiger knight is coming from. The way he acts isn't surprising for the situation that he's in, but I don't think he's dastardly. I think he's just, you know, bitter and kind of confused, which I think that's half the kingdom when it comes to Griffith, right? But God, Boscone's entire appearance as the purple rhinos, Boscone's entire appearance with the big rhino horns coming off his shoulders, looking very Sasha Velour. I freaking love his design. He looks like, in Kirby, there's a knight called Meta Knight, and my brother loves Kirby, and so I by proxy know about Meta Knight. And he kind of has where you can only see like the little yellow glow of his eyes. That's a very Meta Knight thing. So it kind of resembles that. I'm kind of like, now I'm thinking, was Kirby's Meta Knight inspired by Boscone? Because I could see that. But his design's just so freaking cool. I'm interested in Boscone. Boscone's a curious character. We're going to talk about him. He's a lot more interesting than I originally thought. But yes, we have this war council. If you look at the very front of the fort, it looks like Hogwarts designs. You have like Ravenclaw, Gryffindor, and then Hufflepuff and Slytherin. You've got like the banners are all the right colors. I'm like, J.K. Rowling's been watching Berserk again. Not taking any hints from it, but watching it, who knows. And then we have all of the knights of the rectangular table have all met with the king here. The castle of Doldry. So Doldry is where the decisive battle is taking place. And the castle once belonged to their kingdom as part of their integral defenses. Okay, so Doldry used to be part of the Midlands. The Tudors took it over, and it was a key part of their defense in their territory. So if we take it back, we're going to be pretty much set, right? That's the idea anyway. And so, ironically, this fort has become a staging point for the attacks by the Tudor army since they captured it. But civil war could break out at any moment in the Tudor Empire. We're going to talk about this. So there's a threat of civil war in the Tudor Empire, which is interesting. So this table has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 knights sitting at the table, and 11 if you count the guy standing next to the king, and the king makes 12. Okay, interesting. That's the council that we've got so far in this. So they talk about civil war breaking out in the Tudor Empire in regards to the matter of imperial succession. Most likely, the empire cannot afford to spare all of its great military forces. So the Tudor Empire is not doing great. They're on the verge of a civil war because of their issue of succession, which is kind of funny because the Midlands are kind of in that same predicament, even if they don't realize it, because it's just the king and his daughter. Who's going to succeed after him now that Julius and Adonis are gone? So, I mean, I could definitely see where in the future, if there comes a question like, what if the king gets sick? Because the White Tiger Knight, he says the king has aged a lot. It seems the king has aged, and he's putting all his faith in Griffith, and he's kind of like, well, that's kind of weird. I feel like that's a subtle little foreshadowing. Griffith may not even need to kill the king. He may not. the king may just get sick. And then there's the threat of, oh my God, we could be just like the Tudor Empire, go into a civil war because we don't know who's going to succeed the king, and we're going to end up in the same problem as they are. And the king's like, no, I've got this figured out. And he like grabs Griffith's hand and he's like, will you marry my daughter and secure the line? And Griffith's like, me? Become king? What? Like, it's the most surprising thing. And then it's like, bah, here we go, right? And he gets rid of the queen and it's all over, right? I would not be surprised, now that I think about it, if the king ends up getting sick and Griffith wins this battle for them and he makes Griffith like betrothed to Charlotte, and Charlotte's like, yes, and then we go from there. I could see that. And then the queen's the only person I could see having a problem with it, because she seems kind of like an uppity wench that would have a problem with it, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But yeah, that could very well be the case. They could end up in the same boat as the Tudor Empire, but then Griffith steps up to just take one for the team, right? And so they're having trouble sparing all their military forces. This is a rare opportunity. They're like, hey, while they're on the brink of civil war, if we take this one fort back for our defenses, we kind of have it made. We can work this to our advantage and possibly end this war. We can't miss the opportunity to achieve the conquest of Doldry and to recapture our fief. So they said our fief lord. Now I'm so curious if recapturing our fief, if that is, I'm not the best on the terminology with something like this. If they're referring to an actual recapture our fief, like a fief lord, who we saw in episode 1, or if they're referring to our fief being like the land and territory, because you have a fief lord, which means he would be the lord over a fief. I want to, just for my own sake and clarity, look up what the word fief means. It means an estate of land. Ah, yes. Sphere of operation or control. Great. So yeah, in this case, they're like, this is our chance to reclaim Doldry, our land, and get it back for the cause. Great. And then what shall we do about it, right? The principal garrison station, there's the Purple Rhinos by General Boscone, and are the strongest knights in the entire empire. Even our most powerful asset, the White Tiger Knights, suffered great losses. So up until now, the White Tiger Knights, which he does have the most elaborate armor, so I would assume he's one of the most powerful, were like the staple of the Midland army, and now he's suffered defeat at the hands of Boscone. And he's very mad about it, and you can kind of get where he's like, yep, I'm pissed. And so the king's like, an all-out attack. It might be our only option. And so the king is like, well, look, this is our only chance. We need to take advantage of it. We need to attack them where it hurts. And I say they're like, I get where the king's coming from, because he's like, there's no chance we're going to have this opportunity in the future. So let's just attack them now while they're down and just go, let's put all of our chips on the table, go all in and strike. And the army's there, the knights captains are like, well, now wait a minute. They're like, this could be really dangerous. And like, if the White Tiger Knights can't do it, who can do it? And then and then Griffin comes in being like, I mean, I guess. what is? I feel like he's like Elle Woods in Legally Blonde, you know. I want to go back to this. He's like Elle Woods in Legally Blonde, where he's like, oh, what? Like, it's hard? I feel like that's the case. He says, what does he say here? The one guy stands up when the king says they need an all-out attack. It's their only option. And he's like, it's very risky. You have to consider our overall campaign. We've lost 40% of our total fighting strength. So there is a big, there is some things on the table here. The one guy's like, look, we've lost almost half our army in this war. Going all in might not be a good idea, because we may lose everything and then lose the war. So I don't blame them for being hesitant, where they're like, we don't know about how to feel about this. There's no guarantee that we'll conquer Doldry, even if we deploy everything. And if the battle's prolonged, we could get caught between the main army and the occupation forces. Yeah, the other guy beside this one dude is like, we've got to be careful what we do, or we're going to get swept up in this and it's all going to go awry. We can't just willy-nilly dive in. If we're rash, we'll annihilate the entire troops. The war overall is in our favor, and we'll eventually be victorious. But such a dangerous gamble's not worth the risk. So the one guy's like, well, if we just hold out and wait it out, we're likely to win the war in the long run. Because if the civil war with the Tudor Empire takes place, they'll probably destroy each other, and then we can just go in and take the pickings. We don't have to go all in and do this gamble when we have the upper hand. But I see where the king is coming from, being like, do we want to prolong it? I can see the king being like, have we not? It's been 100-year war. The one guy's like, well, it's been 100 years. What's 1 or 2 more years? And the king's like, it's been enough. Let's just end it now. We have a chance to go for the throat. Let's do it and just get it over with. Our final objective in this war is to take control of Doldry. To recapture our fief, occupying Doldry is essential. But which unit would be considered the role of vanguard? So there's this big scuffle where they're like, do we postpone and try to drag everything out and just wait for the Tudor Empire to fizzle out? But the other guy's like, we need Doldry, and this may be our only chance to get Doldry, so we need to do it now, and that could effectively end things. They're like, but whose army would go in and try to stop them for us? We lost the White Tiger Knights. And that's when everybody like looks over. I like this one guy with the round face and the ham chin. He like looks over. He's like, "What about you, Griffith?" I love that he tries to use like reverse psychology. I'm like, you trying to use reverse psychology on Griffith is like trying to give a cat a bath. It's just pointless. He's like, even your invincible band of the Hawk wouldn't be able to handle this, right? I'm like, what kind of reverse psychology are you thinking about doing? And then Griffith like lays down an Uno reverse and a draw 4. And he's like, yeah, we'll do it. He's like, we'll do whatever the king tells us to. If we're given the order, we'll go in. And I like the guy does a double take. He's like, oh, I guess it can't be helped. Say what? It's great. And the other knights are like, seriously? This one knight with the hair product and the slicked back hair, the most metrosexual knight of the square table, it's like he looks over to Griffith like, yes, please. I love him. We're going to talk about him and the blonde knight. Going to talk about them. I freaking love it. And the king's like, okay. And he's like, if your majesty gives me the order, then we'll go in. Everybody stands up except for Hot Knight and the other blonde man on the other end of the table. They conveniently have put 3 knights in between them so that it won't look like they're together. But they're like, do you really think you can do it? I love the Tiger Knight stands up, and Griffith's like, it's not a question. He understands the difficulties. And then this one guy is like, man, Griffith's got a rather swelled head. I love the intricacies of their armor. It's so great. Just by his lucky victories in the past. I'm like, I don't think there was, you could argue there was luck involved with their victories, that actually would track. So I'm not going to discredit that man. But I think the luck has been the devil's luck. And we'll talk about that. And Griffith's just like, look, you don't give a protagonist lip gloss and expect him to sit back in the shadows. I love Griffith. I fully am convinced that Gojo and Jujutsu Kaisen's glossy lips are based off of Griffith, 100%. They're like, during the past 100 years, the castle has never been damaged. And Griffith's like, how many times have y'all said never and we've beaten the odds, right? No one's ever captured that castle, but you say you can conquer it. And I love the perspective of the king. Like, it's like the camera's looking up at him, and he says, can you do this? Can you truly do this? And Griffith's like, yeah, of course. Now, like, the Doldry conquest requires us to employ enormous armed force. If we fail, it'll cause great permanent damage to us. And Griffith is like, well, I don't need to engage them with a large army. And that's kind of the thing. Griffith's like, we've engaged them with a large army for 100 years and it hasn't worked. Did you guys ever think of maybe trying something different? Like a stealthy small army to lure them out and trap them? Like, I don't know. I just feel like Griffith is like, let's think outside the box, gentlemen. We alone will cope with this matter. And they're like, what? And see, that almost sounds like they're like, who do you think you are? And I had RuPaul Drag Race playing in my head. But I feel like they're insulted by that because they think, oh, well, now you think you're too good for us. And Griffith's like, no, you idiots. I just don't need you. You'll get in my way. And it's one of those things where it's like too many cooks in the kitchen. Griffith has a strategy and a plan. And if he involves all these other guys with big egos at the table, they're going to try to take over and either use their seniority or their experience or their attitude to take over. And Griffith's like, I don't want to deal with any of you. You'll mess up my plans. Let me do my thing and we'll just go on with it. Right? He's like, I don't want to have to worry about you all right now. And so that's when the White Tiger Knight brings up the idea. He's like, oh, you think you can fight us with 30? You can fight a force of 30,000 men. And Griffith is like, yeah. He's like, yeah. He doesn't say anything at all. He's like, don't get cocky, boy. I like that the White Tiger Knight, he's like, do you think you can beat this army? And Griffith says nothing. And he's like, don't get cocky. And Griffith's like, I haven't said anything. Don't think your cunning little schemes will succeed forever. I don't know. They seem to be doing pretty damn good right now. And that's when handsome metrosexual Knight stands up and says there's no need to get up in arms about this. Sooner or later, we'll all have to venture into war. So we're left with no other options in this manner. But having a single troop first carry out a clever ploy should not affect the overall leadership of this army. I like metrosexual Knight. He says, he's basically like, look, we're getting our panties in a bunch because of Griffith doing this thing for us because we don't want him to get any more accolades than he already has. But he's saying, like, just because if he goes in and is successful, that's going to be our benefit. It's not going to affect the army's rankings any more than it already has. It's just going to be to our benefit. So shut up and sit down. Is basically what he's saying. I love him. This man, these other guys have like some weird dunce haircuts. Their hair's all over the place. They have bad eyebrows. No manscaping whatsoever. Old slick back metrosexual Knight is like, you men need to sit down, get some product, and work on yourselves. I love him. He's great. And considering their past achievements with the Band of the Hawk, it's unfair to say they'll have no chance at all. And then, of course, the White Tiger Knight captain is like, well, don't underestimate Doldry because he doesn't want to admit, he doesn't want to make his own men look bad, right? And Griffith's just like, And like, Your Majesty, give the final word. I like the one guy that has, the guy standing next to the king has dragons on his shoulder blades, so that must be the guy that was under Julius. Since Julius is dead, the guy that was the head of the blue dragons or whatever, that's him standing next to the king. Makes sense. And just the tension when they all look at him, like, what are we going to do? Like, the tension is so palpable. And then the king's like, we're going to let Griffith go do his thing. Why should we not? And then they all leave. And I like that the Tiger Knight's like, His Majesty has aged. How can you rely upon a newcomer, a boy like him? Yeah, because the White Tiger Knight captain, he's not been around. So he's not been seeing what's all been going down. So he kind of is looking at this from an outsider perspective and being like, why is this kid being entrusted with so much? And the king was looking pretty frail back there. Something's going on. I feel like he's going to keep tabs on Griffith just because he's like, I don't trust him, which is a good idea. I don't really trust Griffith either. But yeah, he's like, the army of Midland has lost all dignity. And I do think that that's going to come back because in episode 1, when Guts was in the town, they were talking about how bad things had gotten since Griffith took control as king. And so, yeah, it definitely, I think that's going to come back around with the Tiger Captain, and he's going to chide Griffith on what all went down and his attitude, right? So then we have these two knights here. This handsome knight with the red cape, Mr. Metrosexual, we got him. He's like, well, I can imagine how he feels, but there's nothing that can be done. And they're like, oh, you have quite a high opinion of Griffith, don't you? And we see this other man who is, equally manscaped, equally masculine here. I wonder if the White Hawk will rise to the occasion as you expect he will. Like, these two men here are just two platonic bros sharing a moment. Little trust. He's like, well, either way, I told them the truth. He says, even if he loses the battle, no other man in Midland is even capable of conquering Doldry. And I'm like, oh, well, Mr. Metrosexual has a very high opinion of Griffith. He does. And then we cut to this other man who has like the blue steel eyes and perfectly coiffed golden blonde hair. And he's like, oh, well, look at you, certainly. And then the two of them just standing there sharing in the breeze. And then I'm sorry. But they're just standing there, and Griffith rolls by, wind in his hair, like on horseback, just trotting along, not riding side saddle, but just like galloping along, looking like something out of a Maybelline Vogue cover campaign, and just flits on by, like sparkles, and he just smiles. He's just like, hey boys, and leaves and like goes away. And then these two guys are like, well, I love that the blonde goes, it may be strange for a man to say this. And I'm like, oh, honey, metrosexual Knight ain't gonna think it's strange at all. He's thinking the same thing. Where he's like, it's maybe strange for a man to say this. But he looks as if he just stepped out of a painting. I'm like, you just had what's called a sexual awakening, sir. You just had a bisexual awakening via Griffith. And then the metrosexual Knight says, a commander beyond all others. Perhaps we're fighting alongside the kind of hero that, what does it say there, who only emerges once in a century. Metrosexual Knight has it bad for Griffith, and the other Knight was like, oh man, yeah, he's not too bad. I just love the mangaka having, this moment wasn't necessary. We didn't have to do this. You didn't have to make it as gay as you did, mangaka, but you did, and I love you for it. I'm like, yes, I ship Metrosexual Knight and the blonde Knight together so hard, but also I ship them and their awakening to the majesty that is Griffith. I'm like, yes, please. Will Griffith end up having a tryst with them, having a threesome with them? Who knows? I thought Griffith would be in a threesome, but it was not with these two characters. But will we get it? Who knows? But I find that so hilarious. So then we cut back to the troops. Everybody's on a little colorful camp. And I just love Guts having fun with his men. They're like a war of dice game. Anyone can win if it's meant to be. Guts, he still has his bandages in his upper body, but he looks like he's healing up pretty good. But I just love the guys all hanging out with him, having a good time. Casca's hanging out because she has nothing better to do, and why not appreciate the view of Guts than go hang out with Corcus or Rickard or something? So I get that. And I also think that now Casca is not only hanging out with Guts because she kind of likes him, but I think now she's curious about him. She wants to know about his character. She wants to know about like why is he got the rapport with the troops that he does, all of that. And she also wants to try to find time to probably ask him again about leaving. And she wants to see like if he's showing any telltale signs that he's going to leave. To Guts' credit, he does not really show any signs of leaving until we get to him looking up at that flag being like, well, this is the last battle I'm with this group. And I'm like, and that is one thing, is that I get why Guts immediately wants to leave, that he wants to like finish the battle. Do I think Guts would just like leave in the middle of the night and not tell anybody? There's a small part of me that does, but there's also a bigger part of me that's like, no, I think he would at least tell everybody that he was going and give them an explanation and then leave. I think I would like to hold Guts accountable to that. I would like to, but I can also see where Casca's like, she wants to watch him, make sure he doesn't just run off, right? The commander won everything again. He has the devil's own luck. Yeah, there were several points from here on in that the devil's own luck got brought up. Like the devil's own luck with all their wins. Maybe it's Guts that's made them win, and it's not Griffith. Maybe it's Guts that's been their good luck charm. Maybe. But it seems like there's that. There's the comment about the devil's own luck. The fact that his sheath for his sword was flapping in the wind, looking like a little devil's tail behind him. There was that. There was the idea of devil's luck brought up later too. Like, it's been brought up several times and tied to Guts, and which is fascinating. And I'm kind of like, does Griffith know about that? Does he suspect it? Does anybody else suspect it? I don't know. It's curious that it's brought up. And then Guts is like, well, what's your problem, Casca? What's your deal? I almost expected him to ask her, like, to join their game and to get her gambling with them. And she's like, oh, no, nothing's bothering me. She's just like, is he still planning on leaving? And she says, I hope that Griffith doesn't lose his composure. I just love that Casca and Guts, they spill the tea with one another and gossip with one another like a couple. Because she's just like, I know, I just hope Griffith doesn't lose his composure because, well, you know who's in the Tudor army that we're about to face. And Guts is like, who? You know, like just like spill the tea. It reminds me of back in the cave where he was like, no way, what? And she's like, do you remember what I told you some time ago when we were involved in a territorial dispute in a certain region? The command, and then he's like, wait a minute. The nobleman was promoted to a governor in a certain empire. I like how Casca words this because she's like, Guts, that guy we talked about that had, relations with Griffith, the one that, Griffith would have some problems with, he got promoted to a governor for a certain empire we're about to face, if you catch my drift. And he's like, oh my God, no way. It's great. It's great how this gets revealed. The bribe money, what does he say there? His bribe money spoke the loudest when the position was awarded. The governor of the Empire of Tudor's Northlands, Governor Ginnon. So that's amazing. Ginnon, we heard him way back, like in episode 6 or 7. Heard of him way back at the start of this whole thing. It did not click in the flashback with Griffith that it was the same guy. It did not click, and I was like, oh. So yeah, and then Guts is like, huh, okay. But Guts doesn't think that Griffith is going to lose his composure. He thinks that Griffith is always calm. There's no chance he's going to lose his cool. That may not happen in this battle, but that is definitely foreshadowing that we are going to see Griffith lose his cool at some point. Right? At some point, it's going to happen. It's like, okay. Okay, sure thing. Then we go back to Adon, right? God, I love Adon. Adon is like a Dr. Robotnik, Sonic the Hedgehog Saturday morning cartoon villain, which is funny because he's voiced in the English dub by the same voice actor as Dr. Robotnik, which is funny. But he is such a hammy character. And even though he's just scum, I can't help but hate him. He's just like such a cheesy villain. You're just like, whatever. Now, Boscone is interesting. I like Boscone. I didn't know how to feel about Boscone when we first met him with the governor because he was all in the shadows and he had the same eyes as Julius. I thought they were one and the same. I'm glad nobody in the comments has gave me grief about that because if they had, I would have felt really bad. I was like, please don't kill me. I know that they're probably not the same character. But I like Boscone. Boscone is really level-headed. Makes sense why he's been around as long as he is. And the thing about it is, Boscone is not malicious. He's threatening, he's powerful, but he's not an asshole, right? Because he had every opportunity. He could have just... I honestly have expected every time that Boscone has seen Adon, I have been expecting him to just kill Adon and just be like, you've served your purpose, you're trash, and like gotten rid of him. But he hasn't. He keeps him around. He gets on to him, rightfully so, but he doesn't ever outright, like when he took the axe, he just tapped him with it. He didn't even bop him, didn't even cause a cut on his face. He just got it right in his face to threaten him and then kicked him down the stairs. That was it. Like, he could have swung, he could have like chopped an arm off, he could have done lots of things. Especially, he could have been cruel because he tells Adon that he's no longer going to be in the army. He could have chopped his leg or something off to make that permanent. But he doesn't do that. Doesn't do that at all. So, it's interesting. I like Boscone's character. He also seems like he thinks very rationally. And on the battlefield, he's kind of like thinking about things. And then we have him go see the governor. Now that we know that the governor is the same guy that was like with the little boys, there was a little boy back in that episode we first met him at, right? It's just dawning on me now that that's been the same man, right? It's just clicking, but there was a little boy with him back then. It's creepy and wrong on so many levels. And what's even creepier is that according to his spies, that's how he knows about Griffith. According to my spies, the second wave has been chosen and it's the Band of the Hawk. Now, according to my spies, that is interesting. The question is, who are his spies? That's the problem. We don't know who the spies are. So, I mean, here's the thing. The spies could be somebody in the court. The spies could be anybody from that rectangular table, any of those chief knights. I don't think it's Tiger King Knight, and I don't think it's the two men questioning their sexuality, but it could be some of the other knights that are the traitors. Could be that. It could also be a good number of people. It could be people within the army itself that are the traitors. Is it going to be somebody that we know? Is Corcus a traitor? No, Corcus isn't smart enough to be the mole. I don't think, anyway. I don't think he's smart enough to take that role seriously, but maybe not. Who knows? I don't think it's Judo. I don't think it's Rickard. I don't think it's Pippin. Maybe Pippin's real quiet. I don't think that's the case. But I don't think it's Judo, because Judo wouldn't have healed Guts, I think, if he knew that they were going to end up fighting possibly the army with the governor. So we don't know. But apparently there are spies inside the walls of the Midlands that have caught word that the Band of the Hawk is going to be fighting them next. And I like that Boscone takes them seriously. That's the one thing. Adon never took them seriously. Adon was always about himself and about, like, talking himself up. He didn't take his enemies serious at all. Boscone takes them seriously. He's like, oh, shit, we need to do something about this. Okay. Like, he takes them completely seriously, which is great, as one should. But he's like, I need to tell you something before you start for battle. I want Griffith brought back to me. Ugh. No, thank you. Nope. What's funny is Casca is worried about Griffith being emotionally compromised, and Guts is like, nah, he won't be. The governor is clearly emotionally compromised. For sure. He is emotionally compromised. The big question is going to be, now that he's on the battlefield, when Griffith sees him, if he does, how is he going to react? And what is that going to look like? How is that going to be a thing? And we've not gotten there yet. I'm sure that we will in the next episode, but we've not gotten there yet. But that's interesting, right? And so then Judo asks how his wounds are, and he's like, thanks to your medicine, I'm all good. And Judo's like, well, that's great, but I don't feel confident. He's like, this all looks pretty bad. That castle's just freaking huge, and it's twice as high and thick as the others. And he's like, the purple rhinos are there. And I like that Guts says, yeah, that's true, but he's like, that may be true, but it's just a castle. We fought worse. He's like, the Black Knight. He's like, I fought worse. And then they destroyed the boats. So he looks back at all the troops there. And he's like, either way, I'm surprised. He's like, he burned all the boats. It's interesting. I like that Guts is like, So, burning all the boats, he seems like Guts smiles at that. So I'm like, did Griffith eliminate any chance of anybody deserting the battle, that they were to guarantee they were gonna fight in this? Is that what happened? So curious. And then we have Boscone wondering, like, are they going to try and push us back towards the river with their numbers? It's a way. And so he thinks about the governor. He's like, it was kind of weird the governor wanted Griffith. Like, what's the deal with that? Are they related? And I'm like, no, not the way that you're thinking. And it's interesting. Boscone seems to have this moment where he's kind of like put in Guts' position, where he's wondering, is my leader going to have a moment of weakness? And then he's like, no, my duty is only to tear my opponents apart till the end. So Boscone is a lot like Guts. He's a lot like Guts, where he's like, I could question this, or I could just like tear everybody down and then worry about it later. So I feel like Boscone and Guts are going to face each other at some point, maybe in the next episode, but I don't know. It's curious how they're very similar characters, especially in their relationship to their boss, which is fun. And then the one governor guy, this poor little alien Taylor Swift looking child that's behind him holding a little jar of water. He's like all red in the face from drinking so much. Ugh, gross. I like that we don't see his full face either. We only see his eyes and his beard. Ugh, it's disturbing. He kind of reminds me of like one of the kings in Vinland Saga a little bit. So Griffith makes note of all the dust, right? That all the dust is in the way. And Griffith's like, it's part of the plan. Like, we're going to use this dust to our advantage, possibly to throw off the troops, possibly to make it where they can't see us, to lure them into this trap so we can attack them from a vantage point. I trust Griffith has a plan and he thinks it's going to work. And he's like, are you all right? And I like the Guts. In true, just absolute romantic fashion, Griffith's like, are you okay, Guts? You gonna be able to handle this battle? And all the dust kicks up, and Guts is like, let me prove to you, Griffith, that I'm all right. And he takes his sword and like cuts through the veil of the dust, and when it clears, he just sees him, and he's like, and Griffith's like, good. Ah! Just, it's our flirting, right? That Griffith's like, you got this, and he like cuts the dirt away, and he's just like, I'm like, yes. Flirt on the battlefield all you want. He's like, it's about time to move. God, it's just sex on a stick, right? And then Casca is afraid that Griffith's going to lose his composure. And then Guts is like, nah, he's the last man to lose his calm. He's so confident in Griffith. He has so much faith in him. It's kind of crazy. And then he looks up at the flag and says, this is going to be the last time that I fight under them. And he kind of smiles about it. He's like, this is the final time that I wield my sword under this flag. I love the maturity of Guts in this episode. Like, Guts, he's so mature. He's grown so much as a character since we started. And he's just like recognizing that, yeah, I got to move on. It's all good. Do we think that Griffith knows that he's going to move on or wants to? I don't know. Do we think that we're at that point? I don't know. Here is my worry. My worry is, now that we can talk about this, my worry is that Casca, you know, is worried about Griffith being emotionally compromised, but Guts thinks he's going to leave after this all over. We have nothing to worry about. My fear is that Griffith has been planning all of his military attacks, by and large, around the use of Guts. And when they talk about using someone in battle, back under the tent, I think one reason Casca was also worried is because she's like, yeah, Griffith is not going to be afraid to use anybody towards winning this battle. And I think Casca was trying to get the fact without, she didn't want to say it to Guts because Guts would probably take it the wrong way. But what she was trying to say is, you know, Griffith is probably going to try to use any means necessary to win this battle. And typically our trump card has been you, Guts. But you're not in any position to go all out. And I think, one, Casca is afraid that Guts is going to get used in a way that's going to hurt him. And then the other fact of the matter is just the idea that, you know, Griffith has relied on Guts for most of his battles. That's been like the lucky item that's allowed them to win. And so if Guts suddenly decides to leave, well, how is Griffith going to respond to that? Because Guts has been kind of like the reason they've been winning. So I don't know. I'm like, I don't know how that's going to play out. That's why I kind of wonder if Griffith's going to be like, oh, you're leaving, but, and there'd be like a but involved. And not just Griffith's naked butt from episode 4. But they all start like going towards Boscone's men. And Boscone's like, okay, well, they're dividing their 5,000 troops into like in half. Why would you do that? He's like, just charge into him, it's fine. And then Guts just comes in and just sweeps and goes straight for Boscone, which is something they're not expecting, this one guy to be so powerful. Like, Guts is a force to be reckoned with, right? And he just goes straight for the kill and manages to do quite a lot of damage. They're like, he's the good personnel that Griffith of the White Hawk has. I love how crazy the horse looks that Guts is on. And then the thing about it is, the governor is afraid that Boscone's going to let Griffith die. He doesn't trust his leading commander. And he's like, I've got to go to the battlefield so I make sure that Griffith isn't killed. And it's like, what? So this whole episode takes like a crazy turn of events. The big difference, though, is that Griffith, I think, trusts Guts completely that he's going to get the job done. Whereas the governor here does not trust Boscone to get the job done, or at least the job he wants done. So he goes to the battlefield to go after Griffith, and then he tells the troops that he'll like raise them 2 ranks for anybody that gets a hold of Griffith. And Boscone's like, we shouldn't do that because then it's just going to create chaos. Nobody's going to follow military orders because they're going to think it's a free-for-all to go get Griffith. He's like, that's a bad idea. And the governor doesn't let him have his way. He's like, nope, we're going to do things the way that I want to. I'm going to ensure that I get my man. And a part of me wonders if Griffith knew that the man they were facing was him. And a part of me wonders if Griffith knew all this going into this, that he was going to be crazy like that. I don't know. It would not surprise me if he did. So yeah, they all retreat, and Boscone is like, well, why did they retreat? Are they wanting us to follow them? That seems like a bad idea. I love the idea that Boscone is like, this is a bad idea. They clearly are trying to lure us away to do basically what they did with Adon, except he wouldn't listen to Adon because Adon was rambling and talking nonsense. So Boscone's like, I don't know if I really want to do that. Let's not follow them. That seems like a bad idea. And then the governor shows up and he's like, go follow them. And Boscone's like, well, what did I just say? Like, this is a bad idea. But he's so hyper fixated on Griffith that he's not listening to any possible reasons why that would be a bad idea. It's crazy, right? It's crazy. Capture him alive. And Boscone's like, Governor, this is really bad. It's not a good idea. And then the governor says, I'm taking on direct command. He's like, well, okay. He's like, fine, that sounds like a terrible idea, but I can't be helped. And he's like, there's nothing we can do about this except charge forward. As for the rear guard, there are too many meat for me to take on alone. But after everything, they're taking the bait just as Griffith planned. I like that Guts is like, man, Griffith's plan is going great. And I think that if the governor hadn't gotten involved, it wouldn't have gone that way. I think Boscone would have been like, no, let's not do this. There is a part of me wondering if Griffith intentionally planned all this out with the assumption, knowing they were at the governor's palace or castle, with the assumption that he knew the governor was going to act. I wonder, right? I wonder if that was the case. And he's like, everything was executed so it would play perfectly into your hand as always. And Gus just smiles at that like, all right, everything's just all going according to cake. Gus never questions the fact that everything goes according to plan for Griffith. He just is like, yeah, isn't this great? I think some people would probably question like, man, why does this always happen to work out? But not Guts. And Corcus is like, oh, thank God, thank God the plan's going according to Griffith's calculations, or this could have been bad. And Judo's like, that's right. What's the deal with that? And then Griffith is like, okay, formations regroup. And then he's like, we're reaching a crucial moment. Our backs are to the river. There's no way to escape. And so I have little Rickard standing there. I'm like, what's Rickard gonna do? So the question is, what are they doing? He's like, lay down your lives. If you don't, we are doomed. If we can survive, then we'll have won. And I love just like, there's this desperate gleam in Griffith's eyes where he's like, come on, this is our last battle. We'll win if we do this. And then you come back to Guts, and Guts is like, yeah, let's go. Let's do this. So the question is, how are they going to win? How is that going to work out? I think that they're going to do kind of like a charge forward and then get to where they can somehow get around the army and push them towards the river and corner them. Because they're like, if they can find some way to like get around the army and push them towards the river and corner them, that could be it, because they burned all the boats. I don't know. I don't know how this is exactly going to go down, but Guts is so excited. And the fact that the governor's with them and traveling, that is the one thing that remains to be seen. Is Griffith going to let his emotions get the better of him seeing the governor or not? My prediction is, I think that Boscone is going to end up battling Guts. I think that they've been set up as these kind of parallel characters enough that they're going to face each other, is what I think. And then I think the governor and Griffith are going to face one another. But the question is going to be either one of three things are going to happen. First of all, is Guts going to face the governor or is Griffith going to face the governor by himself? Or is Casca going to be there? Is Corcus going to be there? Is it going to be a one-on-one between Griffith and the governor? Or is there going to be other Band of the Hawk members present? That's one scenario I'm not sure of. I think either Griffith is going to face the governor and lose his composure, like what Casca said, but somehow end up winning, Or I think that Griffith is not going to lose his composure and is going to be like according to plan and just wipe out the governor. The question is also, is the governor going to recognize anybody on the field as the spy? Would he even know? Is that going to come up or not? There's lots of questions, but I can't believe next episode looks like it's going to be the battle for this, and then it's only episode 16, and then we have like 9 episodes left to do whatever. But yeah, this episode was absolutely fantastic, and I loved every minute of it, and I'm really excited to see what happens in the next one. So, with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed this reaction discussion. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts down below, but I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'm back very soon with episode 16 of Berserk.